Hi everyone, you're watching a Happy Trails Hiking Wildlife video. Today we're exploring the wildlife in Yellowstone National Park. The other Wildlife Wednesday videos will be in a playlist in the description below, so please click on that. My guest today is my sister Lori. I'm very excited to have her on. She and I went to Yellowstone together in 2013, and she's been there without me at least once and has some other pictures of wildlife to share. So, Lori, welcome. It's good to see you today.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
One of the biggest tips that we have for visiting Yellowstone and seeing wildlife is staying away from them, correct?
Especially things like bears and wolves, you need to stay at least 100 yards from, because when they get habituated to people, then they get more comfortable around us, and suddenly they are in campgrounds and picnic areas and bothering people. And when that happens, they have to take measures against those animals, and we don't want that to happen either.
No, not at all. We saw what could have been a really not good situation in 2013, and this was a bison. And I'm just going to skip through. He was in the mud volcano area, just scratching and, getting all that winter fur off. I believe we were there in June. So he was just doing his own thing, but it was right next to a boardwalk. And that got a little scary because, you notice he goes up onto the boardwalk, and in your picture here, he's up on it.
Well, yes, it was hard to tell what actions the bison was going to take. Yeah. When he started moving up toward the boardwalk, because he was going pretty quick at that point, and there were people that were certainly less than the 25 yards recommended from him. So,
right. Yeah. We see lots of bison and things, but what are some of the unusual things that you have seen?
Well, on my trip in 2015 with other friends, I got to see a mountain goat.
Okay.
So you can see that here. This was just south of the Tower area, Tower Falls area. We'd stopped for lunch, and we had a couple mountain goats that were also having lunch. So in 2015, I saw this coyote, and there's a road that cuts across the Grand Loop, kind of in the middle, and he was down there and clearly hunting something. On that same trip, we also saw a wolf. This was in the fall, and the best times to see wolves are in the fall and early spring, but especially the fall. So I think it's a gray wolf, and this was, I think it was south of the Mammoth area along the road somewhere, and so this was really special because most people don't really get to see wolves unless they're get out early in the morning and go looking for them. So, and I've got one more that is quite unusual. We were over on the east side of the park, and we came across this guy, and he was a good 150 yards away, and we couldn't figure out what he was until I got back to the house and realized that it wasn't a new species of horned bear. It was a bear who was also having some lunch at the time. So he had found a elk, but he was having some lunch then. So.
All right. Wow, that's an amazing photo.
Those were fun, and those were from the trip in 2015. All four of those when I went with some other friends. So.
And when you and I went, we got up at early. It was early.
And we were hiking first, and then headed off to go hunt wildlife.
We headed off to Lamar Valley.
Yes.
And we got to see these guys. And so early morning bear, early morning elk.
Yep.
Early morning baby deer.
Yes.
Early morning pronghorn. And I don't know when I've ever seen pronghorn just laying around.
I know.
They were just so calm.
And I've never seen them when they weren't like running, loping.
Yeah. Most of the pronghorn pictures I have are blurry because they're going. The fastest land mammal in the U.S., yes?
Yeah.
Oh, another early morning from Lamar Valley. We got to see these
Yes.
little babies. And what do they call those baby bison, Lori?
They call them red dogs.
Yes, because people say they look like little red dogs out there. Then we have the tip off is the bear jam. This was a mama bear and her 2 cinnamon cubs. And this is when I learned that that black bears didn't have to be black.
Yes.
And we found this one over near the petrified tree area. And we found it because there were 10 billion cars.
Right. Now, they were a good ways off the road, and there were a bunch of people who had parked their cars and gotten out and walked over to it wasn't particularly a viewing area, but that was where everybody was. And they were staying well away from the bears and letting the mom and her cubs, alone so that they could forage and do whatever they wanted. But this was a mom and probably the cubs of the year, the koi. So it was neat to see them learning to forage.
Marmots. These are marmots. Our number one tip for marmots is keep your backpack close.
Yes.
Because these guys we saw on the Observation Point Trail over in the Old Faithful area, and they were on the lookout for people stopping on the trail and dropping their bags to take pictures of things. Oh, I wasn't with you for these pictures, but can you tell me what's going on here and where you were?
Well, up in the Mammoth area is the Albright Visitor Center, and the elk like to congregate around the Mammoth area. So
that's where they live.
Exactly. So you almost always see elk, and you'll see big bull elk too in that area. But that day there had been an elk that had her baby just right outside the visitor center door. In the evening, we saw these two, and they were coming around the back of the visitor center where the parking lot was. And so we just stood there and took pictures. We tried to stay behind some cars so that we weren't bothering them. But the mother was clearly on her guard, because the picture up in the left top was kind of where she had sent the baby. You go over there and stay out of the way.
This elk is like hours old.
Yes. It's just that afternoon it had been born.
Wow.
This was maybe 3 or 4 hours later. So
that's awesome. This is our only grizzly bear that we saw on our trip, and he was 300 yards away.
At least
just south of Bunsen Peak.
I stopped the car and put it in park and rolled down the window and propped my camera up on the window to stabilize it. And so this was a good 300 yards away, and zoomed in as far as I possibly could to get those other 2 pictures. But you can see that it was a pretty good ways away.
Yeah, he was a big one too.
He was a big one, yeah.
He was a big grizzly bear. Anything else that you'd like to add, Lori?
Well, just that you can see animals everywhere and anywhere in Yellowstone. Whether you're in one of the geyser areas, you'll often see bison or elk. You might see tracks of a deer or a bear, or scat from one of them that you are in the geyser areas, even if you don't see the animal itself.
All right. Well, Lori, thank you so much for being here with me to share this Wildlife Wednesday from Yellowstone National Park. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining Lori and I for this Wildlife Wednesday in Yellowstone National Park. If you'll go down to the description below and click on the playlist to go watch the other Wildlife Wednesday videos, that would make me really happy. Tell them Happy Trails Hiking sent you. And until next time, we hope to see you in our parks.